Change my heart, oh God. Make it ever true. Change my heart, oh God. May I be like you. Change my heart, oh God. Make it ever true. Change my heart, oh God. May I be like you. You are the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me. This is what I pray. Change my heart, oh God. Make it ever true. Change my heart, oh God. May I be like you. Just change my heart, oh God. Make it ever true. Oh, change my heart, oh God. May I be like you. You are the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me. This is what I pray. Change my heart, oh God. Make it ever true. Change my heart, oh God. May I be like you. May I be like you. May I be like you.
So, one question I had was, why was this such a lifetime hit for Helen Reddy? Do you want to hear Delta Dawn? We can do that before we start. Delta Dawn, what's that flower? Wow. You see, when you go to YouTube to look for a song, you end up getting sidetracked. And in the sidebar is all these other songs by Helen Reddy. And that's really going way back for anybody, I guess. But it was a lifetime hit because women throughout history sang, I am woman, weak, not strong. Unwanted, discarded, disrespected, devalued. Men were considered superior. They held a public responsibility. Women held a home responsibility back in the ancient days. But they did some public stuff, but it was home stuff they did in public. For instance, the men could be found in the public squares at the city gate talking about trades and philosophy, and the woman would be at the well, as the woman at the well, or grinding the grain at the mill and doing woman stuff. And but if they were in public, that's what they were doing. That's my point. So her value was also her ability to breed. A barren woman was a dishonored woman. No son was also dishonorable for her. A soldier rode home. This was something that was found back around the time of the Roman time. A soldier rode home in response to his wife's pregnancy. If it's a boy, keep him. A girl, Get rid of it. Society also got rid of women's dignity and honor. Ancient society considered widows even a disgrace. The Westerners would say it's not her fault. She's alone. She was left. Her husband passed. Ancient society would say it's her status, her worth. Her status is her worth. No man now to protect her. She's abnormal. Abnormality is a disgrace. And the more rigid the culture, the more disgraceful the abnormality. The more the ungodly the culture, the more we mistreat the weak. That's kind of the way it works. The more ungodly the culture, the more we mistreat the handicapped. Talk to Chris and Anthony. I didn't get their permission to say this. But they mistreat the handicapped. They parked in handicap spots. You would think, you know, the Bible says one falls and the other one lifts them up. Well, they both did the same thing. Each one parked in a handicap spot and they got a $250 ticket. Mistreating the handicapped.
Too soon. Too soon.
That's what this society is.
Too soon. Going home. Forget about it.
But the women were weak and dishonored. They cost money. There was a dowry that the family had to pay. They had to give away land when the bride was given away. They were considered weak. Now, I'm just quoting you what the mindset was back then. Their bodies were not dependable. They changed form. I'm going to leave it at that. Why would God create woman in His image and consider her dishonorable? Can God's image be disrespected? Why would He make man stronger? The truth was He made woman stronger in some areas. Societies hide that. Societies glorify men's strength and they ignore the woman's strength. Remember, the ungodly society, the more ungodly, the more we mistreat those who are weaker. Why? Because God alone respects the weak and the handicapped. And I shouldn't even say weak, because we each have our own strengths. Kick God out of society, and you kick respect out of society. Disrespect takes its place. Disrespect for the handicapped, for the orphan, for the widow, for the foreigner, for the woman. But God put His respect of woman in writing. And we're going to take a look at that. But to paraphrase before we look at it, He said, I created woman. Helen Reddy is right. I am woman. I am strong. She's not invincible. God alone is invincible. God made her strong. See, when we deny God, we become a little bit of a messed up culture. Men tend to neglect women, and women, liberation, tend to neglect God. It's kind of what that is there. There's a lot of truth in that, but there's a little bit of the anti-God, humanistic point of view. Invincible, you can do anything. So, but men without God's view of woman are like Harry Wormwood from Matilda. Any of you who watch Matilda.
Yeah.
Listen, you little wiseacre. I'm smart, you're dumb. I'm big, you're little. I'm right, you're wrong. And there's nothing you can do about it. That was her dad. And sometimes that's kind of the voice we got in the culture. God had to step in, and He always has to step into this type of society and set us straight. And He says, oh, really, Mr. Wormwood? Truth is, this is God talking. Women prophets spoke the word of God for me. Godly woman mothered some of the great prophets. One we call Mary, bore the son we call Emmanuel. God steps into man's heart and writes, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, obtains favor from the Lord, Proverbs 18:22. Ben Sira, a Jewish scribe of biblical wisdom, says, he who acquires a wife gets his best possession, a helper fit for him, and a pillar of support. A pillar of support. not a pillow. I'll go on. God more or less said, I'm going to sum it up for you. And the best place where I sum up what I think of a woman is Proverbs 31. Right? As most women know that chapter. We'll take this Proverbs 31. I'm going to intersperse some quotes from Social and Economic Life by Samuel Adams. The Proverbs 31 woman, guess where that comes from? You'll never guess. Proverbs 31. All right. We're with it. Proverbs 31, verse 10. A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her. She lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of his life. Here's a quote. Most women had to devote significant attention to food preparation. Flax is like a purple-blue flower, and we harvest it for the flax seed. And you know, today flax seed is a big deal. It's like omega-3 or 9, right? And they harvested it for flax oil, flax seed, but they also had the stem had fiber in it that they made clothes from. Flax fiber were made into clothes from stalks. Men would grow the flax, women would make them into clothes, women would take primary responsibility for making garments and other clothes from that. Ancient Near Eastern sources describe women as engaging in textile, clothing production from wool and flax. Mesopotamian and Egyptian texts mention individual weavers and female guilds. A wife of noble character. She selects wool and flax, verse 13, and works with eager hands, making clothes. The Mishnah, or the oral law, or the Jewish Nazarene manual, if you will, teaching religious and life practices at the temple, it mentions grinding, sifting, kneading, baking as the task of a woman. You couldn't go to Publix and pick up a 5-pound bag of gold medal flour. You had to grind it and sift it and knead it, or grind it and sift it. To produce flour, they threshed. So they took the plant and they kind of just slammed it on the ground. And then they winnowed, which means that they would take a winnowing fork, like a pitchfork, and throw it up in the air on a windy day, and the wind would what? It would blow away the chaff, and the wheat would come down. And then they would mill it with grindstones of limestone or basalt. Pre-industrial women grinded the flour, brought the flour to courtyards to the community mill, which included an oven. They brought bags of flour home. They kneaded and baked wheat and barley for their households along with the food. So, needless to say, she was up before the rooster. The Proverbs 31 woman. In the living room knitting, possibly in the kitchen kneading. And not only does she select wool and flax with eager and work with eager hands, but also, verse 14, she is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family. She portions for her female servants. And some, they say, were even grape farmers back then, winemakers. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. Verse 16. A Proverbs 31 woman made her own clothes, her own bread, and even her own dishes. A Proverbs woman, I quote, worked ceramics and weaving. Ethnographic evidence indicates that throughout the centuries, women in the Middle East have worked on ceramics in order to equip their households with necessary domestic wares or produce items for commercial purposes. They made their own place settings. I mean, who makes dishes? Who does that? Everyone knows that we buy them at the thrift store. Right? And if you can't find it at Family Treasures, we'll have it at Living Water. Proverbs 31:1, verse 17. Summarize some of these. Works vigorously, strenuously. 18. Trades profitably, tirelessly. Her home is a clothing factory. Her home is a mission station. to the poor, a sanctuary to the needy. A Proverbs 31 woman plays hard, and she sleeps hard. You know why she sleeps good at night? It says she's at peace because her family is fed. Knowing, verse 21, when it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She's a classy lady, clothed in fine linen and purple, and she has time to be a good wife, to make sure her husband succeeds. Even with all that, she has to take care of that loser, right? We call a husband. I'm one, so I can say it. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. There was a machine invented that you put wool and flax into it and a lot of sweat, and out of this machine came garments. They call that a loom. And they had those back then. That's how they made clothes around Jesus' time. In fact, they said Jesus wore a cloak that was seamless, because they had the big invention around Jesus' time was a wider loom that you could make the garment without a seam. That was the technology back then. A seamless tunic, I guess, is what it was. She makes linen garments and sells them, supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. Verses 24 and 25. Manufactured goods happened at the household level. Men harvested raw resources, and women produced household products. So men caught the fish, and women cleaned the fish. Generalizing here, men caught root of flax, and women knitted the flax into clothing. She manages her household, never idle at home. Her children call her blessed. Her husband praises her. And wives, at this point, you might want to take a pen out and hand it to your husband, and that he writes this down and repeats this to you throughout the year. Verse 29, the husband says, "Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised." Now I skip verse 26, which is the key verse as we close out today. She, a woman, speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction on her tongue. An Egyptian proverb inscribed in 1800 BC said, "Good advice is rarer than emeralds, and yet it may be found among the women at the grindstones." Kind of where they hung out, at the grindstones. That was 1800 BC. Good advice can be found from the women at the grindstones. A female network was at the wheat mill. How else did you hear the latest news? You went to the wheat mill. But here's what's interesting. In Proverbs, I'm going to just go through some Proverbs scriptures, but wisdom is given in reference to a woman. Wisdom is personified in Proverbs. Personified means made to be a person. The person that it's made to be is a female person. Every one of these references in Proverbs references a female. Proverbs 1:20, out in the open wisdom calls aloud. She raises her voice in the public square. 4:6, do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. Proverbs 7:4, say to wisdom, you are my sister, and to insight, you are my relative. 8:1, does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? 8:11, for wisdom is more precious than rubies, and nothing you desire can compare to her. Wisdom built her house. She has set up 7 pillars. 14:33, wisdom reposes in the heart of the discerning, and even among fools she lets herself be known. No men in that series. Women. God was so proud of the woman he created in his image. He was so proud of the woman that was reflecting the wisdom of God. He personified wisdom as a woman. That's how proud he was. Proverbs 31:26. She speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction on her tongue. Who wears the pants in your family? I won't go there. Woman, men, husband, wives. But women, wear the wisdom pants in your family. I guarantee it. That's what God says. Why? What is wisdom? Go to Ecclesiastes. Read it for yourself sometime. I'll summarize a couple of points that make you understand what wisdom is. We'll do a sermon on it to clarify, but wisdom is avoiding the extremities of principles. There are many principles we have to weigh sometimes. And wisdom is what makes you not a robot. Right? You have to kind of make decisions, right? Did you ever have to make up your mind? Take care of one and leave the other behind. Sound like an oldie, doesn't it? Wisdom is balancing those principles. It takes a special mind to handle many things at once. And we heard about the nothing box. Those of you who are in our class, men, we can only do one thing at a time if we are to just generalize. So we take out one box at a time. And we work on that one box, and we don't do anything else until we close it and put it back. And then our favorite box is the nothing box. We just like to do nothing. Women, they can just handle many boxes at once. And he doesn't say it, but I call that the everything box. Women have the everything box. Wisdom is the everything box. You see, that's why a woman has wisdom. God has created her mind to give you wisdom in the household. This last video demonstrates that box, and mothers as well, and how they handle many different things.